Well, good morning, everyone. Just so very excited to be here today. I wanted to thank Amanda for opening us up and wishing John safe travels overseas, visiting his family. We're here to celebrate the contributions and legacy and just resources that our veterinary medical community has. Um, June 18th is Veterinarian Appreciation Day, so I just wanted to highlight that if people did not have that flagged, it is in the flyer. Um, we recognize that you as veterinarians, our animal health technicians, and all the staff who support animal health facilities do deal with stress. You know, you're dealing and navigating having to euthanize individuals' pets. We see all types of injuries and cruelty and neglect. And so you play such a critical role. You all are caregivers, you're therapists, and you also support animal health. So without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Webster, who works at the Georgia Department of Agriculture with me. Just a little bit about Dr. Webster. He is a graduate of Mississippi State University, where he received his undergraduate degree in biological sciences and minored in French. He received his DVM from Tuskegee University. He's worked with USDA Food Safety Inspection Service. He's also served as an associate relief veterinarian with the Copper Basin Animal Clinic and Woodland Animal Hospital. He's been with the Department of Agriculture since 2016, and currently serves as one of our associate state veterinarians. I also wanted to highlight, just because it's a niche market, he also practices aquatic animal medicine. Dr. Webster.
Good morning, everyone. Am I coming through okay?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Well, on today's meeting, I would like to discuss the responsibilities that the Georgia Department of Agriculture team has in responding to disease outbreaks and to address and discuss some of the stress and mental health impacts for producers and our team. And one thing I do want to highlight is that the Georgia Department of Agriculture is a logistical resource for veterinarians out there. Should you have questions about animal movement, questions about should I report this, should I not report that, we're here for you. Any question is a good question. So please contact us whenever you feel the need to. And we can also help you get in touch with other state agencies and resources should you need some assistance with that. Thank you so much. We're ready to advance. So ag wellness. Ag wellness is country and global wellness. Human health, animal health, and plant health are essential, and they are the bedrock of civilization. Our work at the Georgia Department of Agriculture recognizes that good mental health is closely tied to the physical, agricultural, and societal health of our country. Next slide. So producers and veterinarians in Georgia face multiple challenges, which are beyond any individual's control. These challenges can present resource, financial, and emotional stresses. It's important to know about resources to strengthen the individual family and farming and ag business community. We have some examples of some of the stressors that we all face, not just in this state, but now globally, such as natural disasters, foreign animal diseases, and annual stresses. Natural disasters can bring about questions which require investment in time to get answers while we're working through the emergency aspect of it, which also requires speedy action So there's a balance, and you can really understand that and kind of translate that into your day-to-day practice where you have an emergency coming in and answers are needed to work up the case the best way possible while having the understanding of things take time. And in that dialogue, you're talking with producers like you're talking with clients about certain aspects of an event to help convey information while trying to find answers at the same time. Foreign animal diseases present challenges from how to implement preventative measures, which cost, and cost is a stress. What actions are taken during an event? Do we quarantine? Is there a recommendation for euthanasia? Is euthanasia or depopulation required? All those conversations from cost of implementing a strong biosecurity program to what happens when there's a breach in biosecurity. What do you do and what type of impact does it have on livelihood? What type of impact does it have on morale? Some things that may be discussed by the private veterinarian with producers would be limiting the number of susceptible species, which in a menagerie setting doesn't translate well because that's the whole point, is to have species that are different, that are exotic, but is that the best decision? Or can you have them and then kind of maintain them in a way which reduces the chances of disease getting into that population? And there's some negotiation with those conversations that go on with the animal owner, producer, and the animal caregiver slash veterinarian. Annual stresses. I'm going to go with climate. This morning I heard on the news that 3 months ago that a large portion of Georgia classified as drought conditions. Today, we're fully hydrated in Georgia, but what does that mean for the future? Are we supposed to anticipate, us being hydrated and then moving into the future? What about summer floods? Will we have a regression back into drought conditions? What conversations are we having with producers about how do we prepare for bad times during peacetime? And I'm taking it that right now with all this rain, we're in peacetime now with agricultural commodities being produced and them getting an adequate amount of water. So it can be a bit stressful for the practitioner and the producer, and understanding where the producer is coming from is essential. I am not a producer, but I have a means for livelihood. The same for them. How would I feel if I had conditions that were beyond my control affecting how I live, work, and conduct my livelihood? So, who is caring for the caregiver? Everyone falls into this space. We have to take care of ourselves, check in on those in our communities, and see, hey, are you okay? Are you affected by the change in weather? It's something as simple as that, not knowing how people are feeling and trying to project the future on their annual returns with their agricultural commodity. Next slide, please. So I wanted to give some background on how GDA classifies diseases. One, because we don't really get to have this conversation with veterinarians unless it's in a conference setting, which is limiting audience. So we try to share this information as much as possible. And I thought this was a great opportunity to do so. So just on a broad stroke, we're looking at reportable animal diseases, or, and I don't have this on the slide, incidents of increased morbidity and or mortality in settings, because that also will cause an effect that these reportable animal diseases do. And a lot of times when we're working up cases that are deemed reportable, we may not even have a diagnosis yet. We're working off of clinical signs that are suggestive, such as ulcerations, mass mortality, respiratory diseases, things of that nature. But um, I'll start with routine responses. So this tends to happen in our licensed facilities where there are common diseases that are commonly found in privately owned animals, just as those that are in vulnerable populations. And the focus is on community health. So it's incumbent on us to realize that if we bring an animal into a population that is already under stressors, adding a diseased animal into that mix will cause disease amplification throughout their population. And with the nature of these businesses, these animals are going to the four winds. So our goal with the department is to address biosecurity, husbandry, disease, and overall education on why things are important to prevent disease in these populations. It may just be something as simple as parvo, but parvo can be treated, it can be remedied, or it could be fatal for some pets. But in a large grouping, these animals may not be up for adoption. In strangles cases, it'll be one horse conveying to others, things like that. Program diseases. These are diseases that focus on livestock, and their focuses, we focus on those for eradication purposes. So we do establish programs that producers can sign up for go through regular testing so they can reap the benefits of not having to do certain other logistics like testing for interstate movement. And with these program disease responses, we're providing a tool that allows producers to say, my animals are free of this disease. And at the same time, we're knocking down this disease presence in various populations. Now, the bad boy in the room are the foreign animal diseases. So, responding to those, I'm sure you're familiar with avian influenza, which has been a scourge for us for the past 3 years. So, these are emerging or diseases found outside of the country, which have significant effects on economy and trade. So, foreign animal diseases of interest outside of the US that we're looking at are like New World Screwworm, African swine fever, foot and mouth disease, and we implement certain controls for animal movement, both interstate and internationally, to mitigate those risks of diseases affecting our populations here in the US. Some of the common ones that we're working with in Georgia, Seneca Valley virus A, which is found in certain hog populations, which mirrors foot and mouth disease. Equine infectious anemia, which is establishing more of a presence, not only just in Georgia, but around the nation, again, due to certain practices of using inhygienic methods of medical care for horses, and the same for pyroplasmosis. And I'm sure you're familiar with avian influenza across the board. Next slide, please. So touching back on natural disasters, giving some examples of such, working with producers, I'll give an example of Hurricane Michael. Producers were stressed in South Georgia with pecan groves being down, mudslides, inability to move in and out of certain regions or certain counties, moving animals to market. And also, during these events of natural disaster, we see increased morbidity and mortality amongst these livestock populations. And working with producers and veterinarians who are resource limited because of the disaster, our role is to provide resources out of that disaster zone, such as our Nolan labs to do necropsies to see how livestock are affected by these disasters. To give an example, with Hurricane Michael, we saw an increased prevalence of cattle ingesting mud and debris, causing gastric issues and mortality. That was found out through concerted efforts to provide resources to producers to get these animals to our Tifton Diagnostic Lab, Athens Diagnostic Lab, to get to the heart of it and get some answers, because during disasters, there's a lot of questions, but we don't have a lot of answers. So in that case, we were able to at least say, hey, if you can do X, Y, and Z to mitigate this potential risk to those that are still alive, you may be able to reduce the amount of loss in your production facility. Some of the things we've done with small animal communities would be the Rockdale County Biolab fire, and working with some of the rescue groups on questions about contamination, washing pets, hygienic practices to mitigate toxin exposure. Next slide, please. So some of the big to-dos with the department are education and addressing questions. During disease investigations, animal health has major responsibility. This slide is not all inclusive of the things we cover, but some major components are addressing the concerns and needs of producers and veterinarians. When working up disease events, a lot of the questions we get: why are we responding to this disease? Why were you called in? Why did my veterinarian need to report this scenario? And then other questions would be, what could happen if there is no response? Or if the response does not address the disease event, what do we do? How do we prevent spread? So those conversations involve giving information on the disease, how it works, what it does to susceptible populations, and what happens if we only do partial measures when other measures come in place. Some examples of that would be avian influenza in poultry versus livestock. Whereas in poultry, since it's such a devastating disease and it spreads so rapidly through a population, we implement a depopulation stance on that at this time to stamp out the disease risk, one, not only for animal health, which is extremely important, but also trade and commodity exchange with our international partners. Whereas highly pathogenic avian influenza in livestock presents differently. It may present with nasal discharge, increased morbidity, with a very, very, very low mortality rate. So those are things that we use to determine what action we take, such as depopulation versus quarantine. And conveying that to a stressed producer, it comes out easily here, but they're thinking about the cost. What do I need to spend on depopulation versus quarantine? How much is this going to set me back? So you're going to check in. We're checking in with them to say, hey, are you even present in this conversation? And if not, let's take some time and then come back and revisit this issue. We also discussed the testing sequence. Received a question last week about a questionable EIA result. What does this mean? I'm a layperson. I don't do diagnostics. I'm just a simple man with a horse. Why are we doing screening measures? What do we need to, why do we need to do this AGID, blah, 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 blah. And why is that the gold standard? So a lot of our work involves being in communication with individuals to help them understand, hey, we're not out to get you, we're here to help you. And you can understand how that goes sometimes and how that adds stress to us. Next slide, please. So appropriate data sharing and resource sharing is also a big responsibility of ours, because what our goal is protect continuity of business through many different means. If it's from protecting animal identification when animals are found at large, as not for the producer to receive harassment from the community. Um, Other examples would be how to convey what needs to be known to credentialed authorities, such as reporters, and reporting out to our government officials on the status of a current disease in the state of Georgia, and or what threat does a disease pose to agricultural industry in Georgia should it not be here already. One of the perks is we have a strong team to get these answers to these individuals. And we also work with our other animal health professionals, such as you, private veterinarians, to get background on cases, One Health partners with GVMA, with CDC, public health, to provide a all-encompassing response that addresses multiple needs of the producer and our industry partners. Resource sharing, like I said before, with the example of Hurricane Michael, with diagnostic lab support for producers, providing guidance for veterinarians on how to get an animal moved into Georgia. And if I'm trying to move an animal out of Georgia, who do I need to contact? I've tried to do that in practice. It's not easy. I'm like, oh, you just go here. You work for Department of Ag, they would say when I'm working emergency. Can you help me find the rules and regs for Wisconsin? And I'm just like, you know what? This is harder than it looks when I'm at my work computer at my day job and I can just click a button. So a lot of the challenges while working in practice, you have emergencies, routine care, and then you're getting inundated with how to get an animal moved for whatever purpose. Our role is to really be there for you to provide those resources and even address the questions and provide answers to your clients should you not have the opportunity or time to do so. Next slide, please. So, individuals are stressed. Stress manifests in various ways for different people. It can be physical, emotional, or both. Challenging clients can contribute to some of the stresses that we have. So another big part of our role as animal health regulators is being the messenger, providing guidance that is informative, concise, sensitive, and respectful for the audience. And we also determine if the affected individuals are, like I said before, present in the moment to receive this information. Some things that we've worked through as examples are EIA in horses, being present and sensitive to the need to euthanize this animal for the betterment of the preservation of the whole population, and providing information that emphasizes the need and importance to do this not only for this particular horse, but or other horses that they may have. You can imagine how that would go to navigate that situation. But our goal is to provide science-based information in detrimental situations to help the audience understand what needs to be done. And we also work with animal health groups on depopulation and work through rescue and hoarding situations where we're observing animals in poor health and or in poor environmental conditions, which can be challenging to remain objective in a situation where it pulls at your heartstrings. I mean, we're all humans. We see, we feel, but we're there to do a job in understanding that we can rely on each other through this event, after this event, and even before to check in with each other. Are you okay? Do you need to take a break? We can discuss this afterwards, doing those things, because it takes a lot of effort to be out here and be a hero for our vulnerable populations. Euthanasia and depopulation is never easy. But you can go ahead and advance care. I apologize. So some other aspects of our conversations and challenges is again, producers and licensed facilities being there to understand that this is a passion, this is their livelihood, this is what they live and breathe. This is why they get up in the morning. This is how they better the world. This is their service to humanity. And when disaster strikes, all that needs to be taken into account in understanding, okay, how is this impacting this person? How do I address this conversation? So I put some examples on this slide here for food animal producers. Is it economic? Is it economic and emotional? Companion animal, economic, emotional loss. Shelters and rescues, emotional loss. Community scrutiny, things that they face is weighing on them while going through this event. So being cognizant, aware, present is one of our big roles in recouping something out of a disaster. Next slide, please. So some tools that we have are on our Georgia Department of Agriculture web space, and we have a multitude of services available to get you in contact with. Not that we service those directly, but to get you some information and provide connections that could help with overall wellness and mental health. Next slide, please. So the department promotes focusing on our ABCs, awareness, looking for signs and symptoms, just like we do in our patients. What are signs and symptoms that our coworkers aren't okay? Um, Balanced livelihood. Take the breaks, get a vacation, take 5 minutes, do some lo-fi, meditate if you can. Because in a practice setting, things are happening at lightning speed in multiple locations. You have a dystocia in the back, you got vaccines in room one, and you got a sick I don't know what in room three. So it's a real challenge to focus on health, but as a team, try to devise a way to make wellness a part of your life as well as your patients. Next slide, please. So some stats from our GNR study, GRHIC, I correct myself. 47% of farmers report experiencing loneliness. 49% of farmers report being sad or depressed. 29% of farmers report thinking of dying by suicide. More than 60 of first generation farmers had thoughts of dying by suicide. So those are things that we take into account when working with our producers and veterinarians that are out there keeping us alive, safe, and healthy, and providing me with all of the chicken that I can stand. I really appreciate you guys out there, and we all do here at the department. So we have these resources available should you need those, and keep them on hand for any staff members. And thank you today.
Thank you, Dr. Webster, for giving that overview of what the department does and some of the pressures. In the interest of time, I'm going to keep it brief, but I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Carrie Riddick, who is Executive Director for the Georgia Veterinary Medical Association. I just really wanted to shout her out. She does an amazing job just caring for you all. She's dialed in during disasters and responses and attuned to the needs. She has a background in equine and mixed animal practice. She'll be followed by Dr. Laura Smallwood. Um, who is the owner of the St. Francis Vet Specialist. She's a UGA grad, and and then she will be followed by Dr. Tammy McGraw. So again, in the interest of time, I just wanted to go ahead and give an intro. And so with that, Dr. Riddick, I'll turn it over to you.
Good morning, and thank you very much for having me. And that's this is a large presentation to follow with Dr. Webster's. I've just learned a lot and really appreciate it. So the Georgia Veterinary Medical Association is a membership association of veterinarians of all types of walks and practices throughout Georgia. And often it also, we support their team members. So anywhere from veterinary technicians to practice managers to, anybody who's cleaning kennels and whatnot. However, we can help support the veterinary profession is what we're here for. Today, I would just thought on my part, we could just talk a little bit about the unique challenges large animal and rural veterinarians are facing, look at the Merck well-being study and just some wellness resources that we have. And I want to just say in advance, thank you to the incredible work of Dr. Smallwood, who will be speaking next, is one reason we have so many of these great resources. So first, just to touch on the state of large animal veterinarians in Georgia. So the numbers, they tell a little bit of a grim and concerning story. First, veterinary medicine was, very long time ago, is all developed for our large animals and take care of our large animals, our equine, which we're serving as transportation, and our livestock. So now large animal veterinarians represent only 2% of the profession throughout the United States. So with these numbers having plummeted from 90% to 2% since World War II. So this, potentially is it could be a threat that we're, seeing in our livestock industries. And again, throughout the United States, but Georgia is a big part of that. So if we consider what's at stake, with Georgia, we have over 1 million cattle. Cattle and calves generate $427 million annually. We have a dairy industry that contributes nearly $578 million. So yet rural Georgia faces veterinary deserts, areas that have virtually no access to specialized large animal care. And this jeopardizes not only the animal health, but also the food safety and our agricultural economy. So the challenge is clear. We have salary disparities that drive new graduates towards urban companion animal practices, where their salaries, they can earn significantly more than what we're seeing in rural areas. Rural large animal practitioners that are earning significantly less despite facing greater challenges. So we have studies that show students are more likely to return to their community of origin. So we really are hoping that with enhanced efforts to, connect and select veterinary students from rural communities, that they will return to their home areas. However, it's so important, and I think so many on this call can help us ensure that there's a place for those veterinarians in their community, a place for them to have a job. So the University of Georgia, I do not work for them, but so these are just some public statistics. They have increased their veterinary size from 114 students to 150 students. They have enhanced their rural recruitment. Recently this year, we have also seen the passage of House Bill 172, which is the Georgia's Veterinary Education Loan Repayment Plan. And that now offers a significant loan reimbursement for over a 3-year period for veterinarians who practice in rural high-need counties. So let's go on and just talk briefly about the Merck Animal Health Wellbeing Study. This has served as a tool to understand mental health in the veterinary profession. It is a landmark study. It was the first nationally representative examination of U.S. veterinarians across all sectors of our profession. It was conducted in collaboration with the American Veterinary Medical Association and designed to definitively quantify the prevalence of mental illness and well-being challenges in veterinary medicine. The study's goals are ambitious and essential. First, it identifies and explores the current state of mental health and well-being. Second, it brings critical awareness to the unique challenges that veterinarians and support teams face daily. Third, it tracks changes in well-being metrics over time. And finally, it compares our findings to the general US population, providing crucial context for understanding where veterinarians stand. Hopefully, the research illuminates a path forward, helping us build a more sustainable profession for not only current veterinarians, but our future veterinarians. So if we start with some of the positive news, nearly all veterinarians, about 98%, take pride in their work. 90% believe that their work is meaningful contributions to people's lives. This is also true for our large animal veterinarians who serve Georgia's vital agricultural communities. So the study also identified some significant challenges facing rural veterinarians. It's all, but we see this kind of more concentrated in rural veterinarians. So we have staff shortages. That is the number one concern. And the rural practices have been hit hardest, where recruiting qualified team members is already challenging. There's financial stress, which we already talked about, salary disparities. And then there's work-life balance, which remains elusive for many rural practitioners. They're covering vast geographic areas. They have limited backup support. And we know they're also providing services kind of around the clock and on the weekends. So the other kind of concerning area is only 36% of veterinary teams discuss well-being and mental health, a critical gap in rural communities where isolation can compound stress. So I just wanted to touch briefly on what the GVMA's commitment to veterinary well-being is, and just some of our programs. So to highlight, we have a program called Compass, and it is a member assistance program for veterinarians and their team members. It can provide confidential short-term counseling through BetterHelp. It also has some, resources for legal support and financial support, or just even walk through some financial ideas and what people are facing. Oh gosh, hang on. Not sure what just happened there. Okay, here we go. And then we have a program called CAN, Colleague Assistance Needed. And this is a time that during times when a veterinarian needs support, we have a network that we're able to spread just communication and resources to help our professionals that are facing significant challenges. This was very impactful last year during Hurricane Helene. And then finally, we have suicide prevention resources, crisis resources, and mental health resources. My last slide is just want to highlight something for new graduates, because this transition between going from veterinary school to practice can be a very challenging time. And Mentor Vet is a national program that we proudly support, and it's designed for recent veterinary graduates to help develop a lot of their skills and that veterinary school doesn't necessarily train. It's also coupled with some financial coaching that can help navigate debt and career decisions, and it has a lot of mental health support built into the program as well. So hopefully we're helping these young individuals create some resiliency. Especially due to time, I'm going to turn this over to Dr. Smallwood. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Riddick. So I just want to say a little bit about my background. I worked in clinical practice for 37 years, and most of that as a practice owner. And actually, I no longer own St. Francis Veterinary Specialists. I transitioned from being a clinical veterinarian to working as a mindfulness educator in 2020. And I am a certified mindfulness-based stress reduction teacher, and I'll say a little bit more about that in a moment. And in addition to teaching the 8-week mindfulness-based stress reduction curriculum, I also teach courses and trainings that are adapted from that curriculum. And I've worked with a variety of communities. I came into this because obviously my interest in working with my fellow workers in the veterinary community. So much of my work has been with the veterinary community, but I've also done programs for the human healthcare community as well as other groups. And the focus of my work in the last number of years has been stress coping and recovery, bringing greater awareness to the manifestations and health effects of chronic stress, working with nervous system regulation techniques to help people regulate their nervous system, and more recently, a growing interest in trauma resilience. And as a mindfulness teacher, I encounter a lot of misconceptions about what mindfulness is. So I want to say a little bit about that. And in particular, the mindfulness-based stress reduction curriculum, which informs my teaching and my coaching, has been around for 40 years. It was developed at the University of Massachusetts at their hospital there. And so it's been scrutinized for many years. The curriculums remain pretty much intact with some minor changes during that time. So it's evidence-based and it's scientifically validated to be beneficial. I want to say it's not a panacea, but it can be, what is taught there can be quite valuable for creating resilience. And I meant to start my timer, but I'll start it now. So very simply, the curriculum focuses on helping people develop attentional skills. And I think, Dr. Webster, you were really speaking to the essence of what mindfulness is and what you were talking about when you were talking about presence and really being in connection in that way. And the thing about our attention is it's a finite commodity and it's always working, at least when we're awake, 100% of the time. So we only have so much attention, we only have so much bandwidth, and it's always somewhere. And yet, most research shows that 50% of the time, we don't even know where our attention is. We're just operating on autopilot. And we can kind of think of our attention kind of like this flashlight, in that, if you turn on the flashlight and bring it real close to something and shine it, you've got a very narrow field of awareness that is very detailed. And just like we can get up close to something and look at it very carefully, say, there's a tree and now we're looking at a leaf, you can widen out your attention, just like the beam of this flashlight, and have a wider view of things, but less detail. And also to recognize the things that aren't illuminated by this flashlight aren't in the field of awareness. So what's behind me or to either side that's not in the light. And which means that we can also be standing by this tree and turn our flashlight to, I don't know, our phone. And so now that's where attention is, and we're not even aware that we're in a forest. And so that's a very simple explanation of kind of the skill base we're trying to build with mindfulness, is the capacity to know where attention is, to use our attention intentionally, and also to recognize when we're lost in thought, when we're mind wandering, when we're operating on autopilot, we have the capacity to redirect. And so the reason this is important is because it turns out what we pay attention to and how we pay attention to it affects how we feel, how we behave, and it also directly impacts our physical and mental health. And so training people to work intentionally with their attention can have great benefits. And it's really finding that place, that's awake and aware versus operating on autopilot. And the wonderful thing about mindfulness, this capacity to pay attention in this way, is that it is an innate human quality. So we all have it, and we all recognize those periods as moments where we're really fully present and aware, versus when we can't remember where we left our keys because we were lost in thought. And so it's an innate capacity that we can touch into, and it's also a trainable skill. And so that's really what I do in this course is I I help people train their attention. And there's some things that mindfulness is not. It's not stopping thinking. It's not escapism. It's not positive thinking. And it's also not a relaxation technique, although I will say that being more relaxed and at ease is definitely a benefit of the practice, but it's not specifically practices to relax. And it also doesn't require sitting in a lotus position on the floor. In fact, nothing I teach in in the MBSR curriculum looks anything like that. What it is it has been validated to be helpful for a lot of things that plague us as human beings: stress, anxiety, worry, depression, trauma. It's helpful for trauma recovery. It's also helpful for people in recovery from addictions. It's been shown to be beneficial for hypertension, for heart disease, and for coping with chronic pain. And again, it's not a panacea. It works for some people find it very helpful, and for some people not so much. But for most people, it is beneficial. And so, just to get a sense of what this is, if you haven't done anything around this, it's just as simple as just in this moment. You can do this with your eyes open or your eyes closed. I'll invite you to move your attention maybe to feeling your feet on the floor, or maybe feeling your hands in your lap. And we'll just stay there for 30 seconds. And so you can let that go. And maybe in that 30 seconds, you notice that you didn't stay there the whole 30 seconds. Your mind wandered, right? You had to come back. And so this is the practice. We just work with that. We notice when the mind wanders and come back. Much more to it than that, but that's really the starting point. So more recently, in conjunction with work I'm doing with the GVMA, and I would say I also teach what I call mindfulness adjacent things. So things that have the underpinnings of mindfulness but aren't necessarily rooted in training for mindfulness. And one of the things I've become interested in recently, and we're working with through the GVMA, is something called the community resilience model. And so this is a model, it has the underpinning of mindfulness, because underpinning it is this capacity to be aware of how things are in the mind and body, and to respond to that in a way that leads to well-being and self-care. The difference between the CRM and MBSR is CRM teaches, it's a much shorter course, it's only 6 hours, not 8 weeks, and it teaches specific methods for specific methods or techniques as a way of regulating the nervous system. And it also, and I think this is true for mindfulness too, but this one's CRM is specifically be designed to what I would describe as a generative training. So it trains people in ways to regulate their attentions, how to move their attention to something that's supportive of regulating the nervous system. And these tools can also be shared with others in their community. So it's something that people can take into their community and share with their family, with their workplace, and their school. And this was developed specifically to help communities deal with community-wide trauma or community-wide traumatic events. And Dr. Webster spoke to this very well in his presentation around, natural disasters are becoming more frequent for us. And so that's an example of one. And then, of course, in the context of work and in the context of agricultural work, these, massive events like having to depopulate flocks and such. And so it's meant to help people cope and recover with these sorts of things. So the community resilience model teaches 5 very specific skills, and it's a 6-hour training that's divided into modules. And what participants receive as a result of this, in addition to the training, is also a workbook. And then teachers who teach this are expected to provide the community that they're teaching with some resources for trauma recovery that they can access locally. And the community resilience model also includes, they work with an app, a phone app called iChill. And so this app gives people a way to continue to practice with these skills. And I guess I would say whether we're talking about mindfulness-based stress reduction or CRIM, the community resilience model, these are skills that are meant to be worked with in practice. So we practice with them so that they're available to us when we need them. And they're meant to be used not only as first aid, but I would say also as sustenance or resourcing. So the idea that we can touch in with these skills throughout the day. And as Dr. Webster was talking about the need for breaks and for doing something to care for ourselves throughout the day, these provide people with tools that they can use in that way so that they can help to manage chronic stress. So in summary, I'll say about these two things, mindfulness and community resilience models. Both of them are rooted in human biology. Okay, there's nothing mystical going on here. They're rooted in neurophysiology and stress physiology. And both of them take the innate human capacity to utilize our attention in ways that foster well-being and cultivates that as a skill through training and practice. And thirdly, they foster some independence. So, some independence around well being, so that we have skills in our toolbox that we can use to contribute to resilience. And in both cases, the trainings benefit both the individual and the community. And I found this when I brought this mindfulness training into my practice. Not only did it benefit the people who participated in the training, but the other members of our workplace community also noticed a benefit as a result of the training, because it turns out when you have more people in the community that are able to cope with stress, to regulate their own nervous systems, this has a generative effect in the community. So that's all I have to say.
Thank you, Dr.
Thank you.
McGraw. Great information. Please don't feel rushed. We really want to hear what you have to share, Dr. McGraw. If any of the participants have to fall off, feel free to go ahead and do so. But we want to give Dr. McGraw full attention and listen. And I just wanted to remind everyone, if you do have to fall off, that this recording will be available, and John will be sharing it out. So I will turn it over to Dr. McGraw. Yeah, you'll have to unmute.
Okay, it got muted. You hear me now, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. It's fairly brief what I have to say anyway. I will say a little bit about myself. I'm a 1985 graduate of the University of Georgia. I've been in private practice for 40 years. I currently own a practice in Warner Robins, Georgia. I do primarily small animal, a little bit of exotics thrown in, some backyard chickens, and occasional horse. I'm going to talk today on something that Dr. Reddick had already touched on, which is the MentorVet program. Veterinarians, there's a lot of talk about how veterinarians are 2 to 4 times more likely to commit suicide. What they don't address as much is veterinary burnout. That's an issue that is especially common in veterinarians who have been out of school less than 10 years. Approximately 2,000 vets leave their current field of practice each year, and 30% of those leave the veterinary field entirely. And a lot of this is due to burnout. With our veterinary numbers already low, this is a special concern for these underserved rural areas that Dr. Reddick mentioned. Issues surrounding burnout are many. Most commonly fall under 4 main categories: perfectionism and our resulting imposter syndrome, financial stress, compassion fatigue, and client conflict, especially with the onslaught of social media that is out there now. There's some organizations now are being formed, as have already been discussed here. Not One More Vet was one of the first that has good peer-to-peer work going on. And the group that got started that I work with is called Mentor Vet. Mentor Vet is now under the umbrella of the American Veterinary Medical Association. It was founded in 2021 by veterinary well-being researcher Addie Reinhardt. It was built on a proving mentoring platform, and it provides free mentoring to any AVMA member who's in their first 10 years as a veterinarian. Mentors are licensed veterinarians who have been in practice for at least a year, and we're extensively trained. We get 5 hours of virtual training. It's a group training where you bring in a whole group of people, and we're trained for at least 5 hours virtually on things like suicide, ideation, recognition, prevention, and active listening techniques. There are additional online seminars that are offered every month on things as Dr. Reddick already talked about, such as financial planning and other ways to help. And they also support us on our own wellness journeys. Once our training is complete, there's a platform. The platform is at mentorvet.cronus.com. And both the mentors and the mentees fill out a profile online. And then they are, once they complete their profiles, the platform makes suggestions to the mentees on potential pairings with a mentor based on what their interests are, what their concerns are. At this point, once you get matched, the platform will tell you you're matched. You do a 1-hour meet and greet with your mentee, and you make a decision on what kind of relationship it's going to be. The relationship is for 6 months, and you decide if you're going to, is it going to be a very highly structured, such as, okay, we're going to talk for an hour every Friday, or it can be a more relaxed. I've had mentees that just wanted to relax, where they just reached out to me whenever they wanted to talk. And you set up how you're going to meet. You can do it by phone, text, emails, however you want to set it up. Most of the time, you're not in the same city with your mentee, so it's kind of hard to get together in person, but you can do Zoom calls. The platform does send out periodic reminders to us, telling us reminding us to connect and talk to our mentee if we haven't done it in a while. And then, as I said, this relationship lasts about 6 months. And after that, you decide if you want to continue with this relationship, or if the mentee feels like they have achieved as much as they need, then you can end that relationship. We try not to have more than a maximum of 3 mentees at a time. I prefer to do a little less than that, just so I can devote more time to each mentee. It's recommended that we do not make recommendations to our mentees. We're there to listen and provide an ear and some encouragement. If they talk about a bad experience, then we might ask them how they feel about it, how it makes them feel, what they might change in the future to make it better, and just kind of listen. And if we get concerned that their mental state is not good, there are a lot of resources available on the platform that we can offer them. Suicide prevention, there's professional or mental health professionals on the platform that we can refer them to so that they can get the help they need. They did a study of recent grads that took part in the program, and they showed significant improvements over 6 months as a group on most mental health measures, including stress, burnout, and well-being. They had significantly higher levels of well-being than a control group of non-participants. The MentorVet program participants also showed lower exhaustion and cynicism levels over time, while the non-participants actually showed significant increases. So a positive mentor relationship can provide emotional career support that makes a real difference in the success and the well-being and the satisfaction of a new vet. It also offers the seasoned vets, the mentors, with an opportunity to give back. I had a really great mentor when I was coming along in my first 10 years, and I feel like his mentorship was very responsible for my ability to be successful and have a good outlook on my career. So I wanted to give back, and that's why I got involved with that MentorVet program. the veterinary profession can be really scary. It can be really overwhelming, especially in that first few years of practice. And the majority of my mentees, they just want an ear to hear that, hey, you're not alone. This is what happens. Yes, we understand. We've been there, and you're going to get through this. And that's all they want, is they want somebody to listen and reassure them that they're not alone. So I really recommend, whatever field you're in, get into a form of mentoring, and you can make a real difference in your profession going forward. Thank you.
Thank you. I was not aware of this resource until you all brought it up today. And I mean, I dropped in the chat. I think, we're specifically talking about veterinarians and those in animal health today, but it impacts us all. And just the topics that you all touched on about mindfulness, support, encouragement, not feeling alone, burnout. I'm just amazed at the resources that you all have built and the work we're doing here in Georgia to support our veterinary medical community. Um, I know we're a little bit over time, but I didn't see any questions in the chat. Well, Tara did ask Dr. Smallwood, and I know that you responded about supporting individuals in disaster response. And I just wanted everyone to be aware, it is in the chat, that she doesn't work in disaster response. She's more on the preemptive side, working with individuals in advance to give them tools and resources. I did want everyone on the call to be aware of, if you're new to the Georgia Agricultural Wellness Alliance, there are several agencies that are involved in that effort. And so some of these tools and resources, I wanted you to be aware that you could tap in. AgriSafe has regular virtual online trainings that you all can tap into, and Tara dropped in some resources. I dropped into the chat whether it's Mercer and the Georgia Rural Health Innovation Center, or our partners over at UGA Extension, Georgia Farm Bureau, as well as the Georgia Department of Behavioral Health and Developmental Disabilities. Um, Jennifer mentioned that if there are any immediate crisis needs, please encourage those to call 988 so that they can get immediate access and support. It really is important. I preach it all the time. You heard several of our partners speak to the fact about individuals. You're not alone. We hear you. You are seen. It really is important to check on those in our community. Um, Tara did ask Dr. Riddick, and this will be our last question before we wrap up. Do other states have the COMPASS or CAN programs, or is this specific to Georgia?
Minnesota has a CAN program that is modeled after ours. And it's something that in the development, we actually looked at the Georgia Bar program. They have a program called SOLACE, SOLACE, and we modeled the CAN program after that. That program initiated in Louisiana and then extended to Georgia. But we would love to share the program, throughout, and it's easy to adapt to other professions. Happy to share details.
And Tara may speak to it, but AgriSafe, they have a podcast. I'll turn it over to you, Tara, so you can speak.
Yeah, so we have several channels. God, this group is just packed with experts. I'm just blown away, Vanessa. You just do such a wonderful job bringing people together. We do have channels. They're national channels. We have our podcast, Talking Total Farmer Health, but we look at the breadth of that, and we do a lot of mental health. I would I guess I could look at the invitation and get Dr. Riddick's email. I'd like to reach out to you because
Sure.
we also have another monthly meeting called the Mental Health Innovation Exchange. And it's kind of like flash talks, like maybe 20 minutes. And we have a national audience for that. And there are several people on here that I would like to reach out to share some of this, with regards to the veterinary professionals. So look for maybe an email from me and we can have a conversation. I think this really needs to be talked. We need to discuss this more. You guys have brought up several issues that we don't usually hear about because it stays sometimes within the veterinary professional groups. We know it impacts you, and as well as it has to also the stress that you bear the burden on, as Dr. Webster was talking about, in working with producers. I mean, that is an additional stress that you bear in addition to your own stress and the teams that you have to manage. And AgriSafe is getting more calls from things like APHIS, Ohio Poultry Association, asking us, can you provide some content to help us navigate some of the stress, that we're seeing within our producer population. So thank you, Vanessa. And I'll reach out to the individuals here. You may see my LinkedIn invitations to many of you.
You're welcome. I will definitely share their emails with you, Tara, so you can reach out to all of the speakers today. And I just wanted to again remind everyone that the Georgia Agricultural Wellness Alliance, don't feel like you have to be the only one providing a service, Dr. Smallwood. There's enough that's going on. And I will say, just in closing, there is a shortage of behavioral health providers and social workers across the state. So what that means is oftentimes that you in the veterinary medical community are probably filling some of those gaps. And so we just wanted to honor you and thank you for all the work you do to serve your community. And so, with that, again, a huge thank you to all of the speakers. If you have any follow-up questions, please feel free to email them to John or to myself, and we'll make sure that we can cover that in a future monthly call. And again, you're welcome to join us. This happens at the same time. So, y'all have a great weekend. Thank you. Bye,
Thank you.
everybody.
Bye.
Hi, everyone.